Hi, there's Kevin with the Rogue Market here with an actual finance market video. It's been a long time. We took quite a bit of a hiatus with this channel, but I do want to revive this channel. And most people suggested I start back with the top 10 lists that I used to do as they were the most informative and enjoyable. I particularly want to get back to doing the Rogue Roundups. I think that they are really fun to make, but they are very, very time consuming. This one is a little bit easier. I just have to research the information, make my picks. And these are actually 10 picks that I actually have some skin in the game. These are ones that I am actively buying. So let me actually define what soft specking is before we get into this video. There's a big difference between hard specking and soft specking. Hard specking is something that you think is going to be going up in a reasonable amount of time. This is your last chance to really get in on this price. So it's at its bottom and it's going to be going up in price, and basically you snooze, you lose. Soft specking is kind of the opposite of that. Soft specking is these prices are going to be this low for a while, maybe a 4 to 6 month window, maybe a little bit even shorter than that, but you have time to actually look for good deals. Typically as soft specs, this is something you can also target the lower end cards, and this might not be pertinent to many viewers here because there are only a couple strategies you can use for cards under $5. If you try to do this with like eBay or TC Player by doing the spec game, even if you get in on like a card at $1 and you go on TC Player and you sell it for $3 to $4, the fees are going to eat up the vast majority of that profit margin, and it's not going to be worth your time to try to find buyers through those outlets and then just get crushed by the fees. So the best way to do this is by either buy listing, and you can actually make quite a chunk of change by even buy listing cards you bought for 5 cents and or buying cards for 5 cents and buy listing for 10 cents. That is not out of the scope. I've done that before. I spent thousands of dollars of packages off to places like Card Kingdom and Troll and Toad in the past by doing that. And other strategies like, just buying bulk and then sifting through the bulk. So it is something you can make money on. However, you do have to expect a lot greater percentage returns than you would for higher end cards that you can then go off eBay and TC Player just by making the 15% above like what the fees are going to cost you before you hit the profit margin level. However, like if you do have outlets from in the past, before we got shut down with the pandemic, I used to be one of the very few people that would take a trade binder back in the day to my LGS that had kind of lower end cards, like commons, uncommons, commander staples, like even pauper staples. I'd be that guy that actually had those cards. So I was able to trade up with these cards, get in at super, super low, and then have these cards be throw-ins, and then, wait like 6 months, and then there will be a demand for them, there'll be a lack of supply for them, and you can actually trade them for a profit. So if you are looking to do the juggle with like the eBay TCG Player, this video is probably not for you. If you are more interested in more the buy listing or the trading or manage your collection, I think this is not only a good thing to have in your arsenal when it comes to MTG Finance or manage your collection, but it's also quite fun to do. A lot of people like to do the MTG Finance, kind of like their own little portfolio with stocks. It's very enjoyable, and I actually find it to be quite entertaining as well. So there we go. There's the definitions for what I consider a soft spec versus a hard spec. So why Commander Legends? So Commander Legends is still in its print run. It is being slowly trickled in. People have tried to make a move on Commander Legends, and I think that that's not the right time for like sealed boxes or high-end rares. There was a panic about a month ago when Commander Legends was temporarily out of stock from distributors, but it was restocked, and I think the people that invested in Commander Legends have already lost a lot of money. It was going on eBay at one point, and there were some gurus out there telling people to buy in. This is your last chance. It's not going to the reprint, like 120, 135, I think is what it got during that week and a half, 2 week hiatus or lack of supply from distributors. But distributors are now stocked full. Even like the smaller distributors have Commander Legends in stock at the moment. It's very easy to buy as a local game store. So I wouldn't panic and go out and buy Commander Legends singles or product at this moment. I think it's going to be like Battle Bond. It's still going to have a window that Wizards is going to keep this supplied for, and then you can start to buy it out. Now let's just talk about panic buying to begin with. Man, have we seen some obnoxious panic buying in the last, and that's the best way to describe it. Like, I'm not going to get on my high horse. Well, maybe I will because I'm Kevin and I like to get on my high horse about things, but the amount of FOMO buying and the amount of just the Dutch tuliping that's going on the MTG Finance level is making it super obnoxious to be like a legit investor or, in my case, vendor for Magic the Gathering products. We've seen some huge buyouts in things like Core 2020 that was off of very bad advice. Now, before I start getting attacked for saying, well, Kevin, you told us all to buy Core 2020. You're right, I did. at that $85 price tag. I didn't say go out and buy it up all the way to $150, which is what happened, or where every distributor gets bought out completely and the stock vanishes. I think that is not a good strategy going forward. We've seen this in the past with other booster boxes that then came crashing down. If I remember back in the day with like Return to Ravnica, people were looking at Innistrad and they're looking at Scars of Mirrodin and New Phyrexia, and they're like, oh my god, Return to Ravnica is going to follow the exact same trend as these particular boxes, and the buying was out of control for things like Return to Ravnica, Gatecrash, and those took decades before they actually even started to go up in value. So I think we're in a little bit of a transition with Magic the Gathering, the same thing. People are looking at Amonkhet prices and saying, that wasn't that long ago. Maybe I should do this with Throne of Eldraine or Core 2020, and I just don't think it's the greatest, and it could be to the point where Magic does continue to have such a huge growth rate. I think that once the pandemic is over with and done with, people are going back to doing sports and traveling, and I think that Magic is going to fall by the wayside, and there's going to be a lot of snapback and price correction. So, yes, Core 2020 was a good buy, but why I was saying this, it was based off of some bad data, was people were still looking at some misleading data from Dawnglare. It was including prices from the Planeswalker decks and whatnot. So let's just get that out of the way here with some of the sealed buying that's going on right now. Why I say it's been kind of harmful to the MTG like finance community and just vendors in general is it does feel like kind of a Dutch tuliping, where people are preying on investors, are preying on investors, and preying on investors, and there actually isn't any end buyers that are buying the product. And that always, when you start cannibalizing each other for these FOMO buyouts, eventually things tend to snap back worse than before, and prices that can actually lead to a full crumbling of the market. So I'm hoping we avoid that, and the FOMO buying can stop here. So I'm not telling you to go out and FOMO buy Commander Legends right now. You probably have time with this product. It is still in its print run. So there we go. Now we're out of the way at the intro into 7 minutes here with the video. Here are 10 Commander Legends soft specs that I'm currently actively buying in anticipation of buy listing these for 2 to 3 times what I pay for. So in this one, I'm going to pick reprints only. I'm not going to look at new cards from Commander Legends. These are going to be the tried, tested, and true reprints that I think are good prices based upon their A, how many times they've been reprinted in the past few years, and B, their playability in Commander. I think you should, of course, this is a Commander Legends set, but you should be focusing on Commander cards. There were some like competitive cards that were printed in Commander Legends that don't really see that much play in Commander. I've avoided those particular cards for this video because we need to see a lot of things happen for Commander play to come back to its glory years. All right, so on to our number 10. Number 10 here is, and I guess this isn't really in any order, but these are my favorites in a descending order. So I like Murkfiend Leech. So Murkfiend Leech hasn't been printed that much. It had a pretty decent price tag before it was printed in Commander Legends. We can go over here for some price data. So right now it's going about 75 cents. If we go over to the Commander, last time it was printed in Commander Anthologies, it had a decent little price trajectory as it started to go back up all the way from... so these are the type of cards I like. So this is like no FOMO buying is happening in this. I like these real in-demand cards. There isn't something that is just running the market where people are like, oh no, I better buy this right now. And so this is real world supply and demand. So all these cards have been stripped and the price just continues to go up at this steady rate. So it went all the way from $2 to $4 within about a 2-year period, which I think is very reasonable for any sort of return. Now, as far as buy listing is concerned, I don't know if there ever was an opportunity for Murkfiend Leech to get in. Maybe you bought these right here for $1 because it's very easy when a card gets reprinted to buy it for half the value of what it's going on TCG Market. And so maybe there was a point that there was a buy list from like Card Kingdom here at $2. That's what we're looking for this particular scenario for Murkfiend Leech. I'm thinking that Murkfiend Leech, though, will have a bit of a uptick just in playability, just because these are cards that the more they're seen, the more people realize they exist, and the more they get played. This is a phenomenon that happens all the time in Magic, where a card gets reprinted, and it actually leads to more cards circulating, or more cards seeing play in various decks, because they see it in their friend's Commander deck, they see it in someone else's on YouTube's Commander deck, and then they're like, oh, well, I want to buy that and pick it up and put it in my deck. Murkfiend Leech, I think, is going to get this because of the Commander Legends treatment. Beforehand, it's a little bit obscure. It was just an Eventide and like Commander 2013, and the thing about this card is it has a pretty good ability. It's right on par with where the Magic cards that sell the most are. So it's in that Channel Fireball does a little bit of rating with like how powerful is your commander. This is like the 7. This is in the 7 range. It's not an ultra competitive card, but it's not a super trash Timmy card. It's like everyone's gonna like it. Those Wombo combo, the more experienced players and the Timmies are gonna like the Murkfiend Leech. These are the cards that I really like as a store owner. They tend to sell very quickly, and whenever people pick up a Simic deck, especially the creature deck with activated abilities, this card is gonna go in there. It's also gonna go in there for any go wide type strategy. Other green and other blue creatures get +1/+1. So does a blue-green creature. It even gets even more. So it's better and better synergy with the more hybrid type cards. And the untapping ability is just really good on each other player's untap step. That is a very clutch ability in Commander. If you have any activated abilities, you end up being able to play them multiple times in a turn cycle. So I like Murkfiend Leech. This is something, though, that you don't want to be picking up for the price right now. These particular cards, like the 75 cents, I pay a third for. So I try to pick these up at a quarter. These are the perfect cards to ask for throw-ins for a trade. I don't think it'd be too much of a stretch for people to sell them for a quarter to you, because they're not actively being like demanded at the moment. There's not a lot of demand for this product, so it's not being stretched out. So people are willing to get rid of these for a quarter, because after they try to sell it on place like eBay or TCG Player, they make nothing after the shipping and the fees. So Murkfiend Leech 2, if you look, it does have some new decks that is going into. It's in 17% of all Coma Cosmos Serpent. This is actually a pretty popular card out of Kaldheim. So Kaldheim Coma could already start stretching the supply of Murkfiend Leech. And then if we get another card that actually does want it in the next set in Strixhaven, or maybe the Innistrad set after that, that will be the straw that kind of breaks the camel's back, and then we'll see a spike in that card. So you can see some of the other popular commanders. Not a lot of recent ones. So this is something that it doesn't have going for it, is now it does have Coma. So again, I'm liking the Murkfiend Leech. Next up, we have Relentless Assault. This is just a really staple untap all creatures. Lots of Boros decks, lots of just Atali decks, Nahab decks. Really like Relentless Assault. The thing about Relentless Assault is it's super easy to reprint. That's the one thing it's got not going for it. But if you look kind of the price trajectory here, this was the 10th edition card. So it got some reprints somewhere around here in the dual decks, and it didn't really affect the price. And then it did start to go up in value for Relentless Assault, and then it did start coming back down. It matched up with some of the later ones. So let's look at actually the dual deck, Merfolk versus Goblins, and it was the same thing. So it got reprint, got crushed here at 50 cents, and then did go all the way up to a $1.50. I would not be surprised if there was a buy list at some point in time where you could have made a good chunk of change if you got in on these after the reprint from dual deck Merfolk versus Goblins, and then sold it for a buy list for like 75 cents. Again, I would not be surprised if you could have got this in a TC low at 10 cents at one point for the vendors that were just mass opening. I think there was a chase card in this that was like worth breaking even. I know with like Elves versus Inventors, a lot of people are buying the deck just for the Darksteel play, and then just scrapping the rest of it, selling it for bulk prices. And these are the type of times you want to get on these particular cards. So I do like Relentless Assault. It's also in a pre-con, which means the supply is not going to be quite as high as like just any old rare out of Commander Legends. And it is really flat right now. Again, these are soft specs. It's going to take a long time before this card goes up in value. But the price trajectory from the last two printings has been quite positive to look at, and it does tend to go in a lot of decks, new and old. You can see Atali is a deck that it goes the most in. Nahab, both of those decks are very popular in the scope of things. Will go in the other Nahab deck as well, besides just the Dreadhorde champion. Lots of these kind of mono red stomp your face type decks like it, and there are some cool things even like Narset. Narset is a very, very popular deck, and it's in 45% of all Narset decks. So I'm thinking this is a card that's going to age very well. And this is another one too. That 67 cents, I wouldn't be paying more than a quarter for a Relentless Assault. You want to be very aggressive with these. As fact is just like having people throw them as throw-ins. If it's like you can always be on the better end of the trade deal. Say there's like people are smartphoning and they're saying, okay, we have this even price. You can be like, well, I don't really want your cards. You want my cards. Juice the pot a little bit. Throw a Relentless Assault in there. That used to be my bread and butter of how I grew my collection before I was kind of a store owner, when I was still a poor starving college student. So anyway, let's move on to the next one. The next one is the Generous Gift. Generous Gift is a green Beast Within. Now, Beast Within might be a little bit better in green because it's a lot harder for green to answer everything. White has a lot of cards that do answer everything. But Generous Gift now is destroying a permanent. Its control gets a 3/3 relevant. All right, so instant speed, same thing as Beast Within. What I like about this is it hasn't been printed nearly as much as Beast Within. Yeah, it is super, super cheap in the scope of things compared to where Beast Within is. So again, it had a pretty good trajectory of when it was Modern Horizons. That wasn't too long ago. It did have the reprint right here, so it fell back down. And it is in the just the precons though. So again, another precon card. It does have the extended version that also looks very. This actually is might even be more interesting with the extended because the Commander Legends Collector's Edition. They did have some high supply, but not like obscenely high supply. And I think this is going to be one of the versions going to be highly sought after. So if you're looking at like a hard spec rather than a soft spec, I could make the argument for Generous Gift because there aren't any Commander Legends. I mean, there was just a drop on Amazon. That's a topic for another day of with supply lines. Like distributors didn't get another crack at those. Local game stores didn't get another crack at those, and they just were dumped on Amazon. We saw the same thing with Jumpstart. It's a little bit worrying with supply because it's not going to be so cut and dry as it has been in the past. With when the distributor's out of inventory, you know that the rest of the world is out of inventory, and you'll start to see cards go up in value. However, I still don't think that there's a lot of these remaining sealed as far as that are going to enter the market. So this might be a pretty good hard spec. So meaning that you do need to start targeting these Generous Gift full arts. The non-extended, though, just the regular precon ones, these are the ones I targeted at a pretty low price here. So it's going for $1.70. This one you might be able to get at $1, and I would not be surprised if this is buy listing for $2 if it doesn't see a substantial reprint within the next year or so. That's kind of the name of the game, is how many times is this going to see a commander deck? It could possibly be in a commander deck. That's just something you're gonna have to, make the assessment, kind of the statistic of. I mean, if you want to take that risk assessment of this gonna be a Strixhaven commander, it's gonna be a Modern Horizon card, maybe, who knows? We don't even know exactly what Modern Horizon is gonna contain, all new cards, or if it's gonna contain reprints or what. But anyway, I actually like this one if you can get in. I think worst case scenario, if it gets reprinted again, it maintains its price. Like I don't see this one going further down than what it is. Again, that's where I really like to start looking at. So people, if they picked it up at right here, in December, it hasn't really had time to grow here. You can basically pick it up the same price. I like picking these up at the window. Like Commander Legends is starting to look more and more lucrative because the windows is starting to collapse. It's starting to narrow in. It's not. I can't believe all the people that do like pick up cards right here. I get it. This is the bottom, but I'd rather have the money, the growth here from here for these months of speccing into cards that are going to start going up in value quicker than actually making hard specs on when they hit their bottom right off the bat. All right, so Generous Gift, again, sees a ton of play in basically everything that can put it in. It's a great card for just an all-around answer for Commander, so it's going to be a great card going forward. Next up is Viseries here. This one's kind of cool because it does see Modern play, does see Pauper play from time to time, but it's actually quite a good powerhouse because they aren't really doing as many sacrifice a creature abilities, especially like a one-drop creature. Sacrifice outlets are getting harder and harder to actually activate. I know they did have another one just this time in Kaldheim where you can sacrifice a creature to give it indestructible to your flying dragon. However, more recent sets too, there's been some sort of like cost to sacrificing. So it's a hard activated ability to replicate, especially on a one-drop. And it has had some significant prices in the past. There was one point that the 2011 common was worth a pretty penny. I got up with $2 for a common, and that's pretty good. And now the supply of these, again, the extended one, the extended foil is where it really looks kind of juicy here because this card does see a ton of play. You can see it's in 11% of all black decks do use the Viseries here, which is very, very substantial. And the more and more sacrifice decks that are printed, the more and more this card is going to be demanded for those decks. So lots of Orzhov and Rakdos archetypes, even Golgari are archetypes use sacrifice or kind of this rock recursion type theme. And so Viseries here is always going to be a popular powerhouse for the one drop slot. It's a vampire, it's a wizard. it could get reprinted in Strixhaven for that reason. So you have to make a risk assessment again for it. But extended, I like. I don't know if this again is more of a hard spec on the extended foils at this point, or a soft spec and just pay a little bit below TCG low for it. But the commons I think are still worthwhile. I think there will be a point where the buy list will, you'll be able to get this for like buy list price, nothing right now, but maybe you get these in it, you find people for 5 cents, and Card Kingdom buys them for a quarter in a year. That's a pretty decent little payoff. All right, next up is Preordained. This one actually surprised me as low as it is. It hasn't been printed that many times in the past few years. It had the Mystery Booster Boxlet, and then it had the Commander Legends. The extended foil, though, is quite expensive. And that's where you can also see that there's a huge discrepancy like between Viseries here and Preordained. I'd even seen in like competitive play that Preordained's banned in Modern. Viseries here is not. So the extended in this one's more exciting because even Preordained does see more decks, but not by a substantial amount. 15% of all blue decks do run Preordained, which is very, very high in the scope of things. So the extended art, though, it still seems a little bit overvalued comparatively speaking to the rest of the field that sees similar amount of play. However, the common version of it is also quite interesting just because it is, it's incredibly low right now, 60 cents, same thing. It is a common though, so you want to be looking through bulk, you want to be paying basically nothing for it. This is where you sift through bulk and, super lowball people on this common. You want to just bash that into people's heads. It's a common, it's not worth anything. And that's where you start picking up these pieces, and then you never know down the road when you can buy list this for a lot more than you paid for it. All right, so next up is Imperious Perfect. So the main reason for Imperious Perfect is I think this one is about to start going up anyway. If you look at other elves that were spiking right now because of the Zendikar elf deck, or was it Kaldheim elf deck? The Kaldheim had an elf tribal commander deck. This was not included in the Kaldheim. Oh, it was commander. Yes, never mind. That's why it's not spiking. There we go. So it was included there. It's funny how I put this as an actual rare. And so you can pick up either one of these, either the Kaldheim commander deck or the Commander Legends version of it. But what I'm thinking about, kind of like where they put as a rare in this Kaldheim, is that's a big signal that I don't think it's going to be reprinted in anytime soon. I think this will be the double printing. It's actually got the triple printing, the quadruple printing. So Mystery Booster, the list, Commander Legends, Kaldheim. I don't foresee this one being printed for a while. I think they're going to look at other targets for the whole reason why I got triple printing is because Wizards of the Coast is absolutely terrible at their job. The people that actually, do look at like what needs reprinted, and they all saw this. They were all looking at what cards they could be reprinted and what could be a good addition in it. They saw this wasn't a high or a low card, and they printed Imperious Perfect in all of these different sets because they didn't communicate for what was going in the list, what was going in Mystery Booster boxes, what was going in these commander decks. So I think that going forward, this isn't going to be eligible for them trying to kind of hit their budgets on different decks. They're going to be looking for another lucrative card that actually does hold more value. And a lot of elves did spike up in value that have similar abilities of giving +1/+1. I think those ones are going to be targeted before the Imperious Perfect is going to be targeted again. Now, again, risk assessment. You might disagree with me here, but I think that this is really the low. Between the two printings of the Imperious Perfect and the Kaldheim Commander, I think that we are, this is the lowest it's going to be. And it's going to start going up in value of this. And again, when they put this as a rare, possibly that's where it's going to be in other going forward in later products, which is going to have a lot of kind of street cred for this particular card. So anyway, moving on to the next one, we have Staff of Domination. This is another one where the extended is pretty high for the Staff of Domination. The extended foil is the Commander Legends version of that is barely above the foil, but we do have $4.25 is pretty low for a card that was an incredibly expensive card at one point in before the reprint. So it got all the way up to $55 before Staff of Domination was reprinted. It does see play in many different commander decks with a lot of even newer ones like Zavala from Kaldheim. Very, very easy deck to slot in tons of different commander decks. Goes to infinite with many, many cards. So every set, I'm sure you can find ways to go crazy with. I know the Zendikar had a lot of ways to, actually go infinite because you can untap a Staff of Domination and then untap an artifact for 4. And so if you have like the Lithoform engine, or not the Lithoform, what's the one that Makes your colorless permanents tap for an additional. If you have like those type of things that are making activated abilities cost less, you start to go infinite a lot of different ways. So there's been a lot of love recently printed for Staff of Domination, which I think is going to add to this card being played more and more and more. So where's the highest synergy cards? I'm surprised you don't have it in the artifacts. So what I kind of like about this EDH rec, this is definitely something you should be on your arsenal with speccing into cards, because it will show you all the cards that it works really well with. And if we go down to artifacts here, it'd be very surprising if where is the one from? Wow, it's not showing up for the Zendikar. I would think that the Zendikar one would be a very high synergistic card here, but you can see some of the cards that do synergize with it. This is also another way of getting ahead on spec. So if you see like a brand new reprint here that has a high synergy rate with Staff of Dominations, you know that the other piece to it is probably going to be going up. So that's a video for another day. I'll have to show people, but definitely use this high synergy with EDH Rec. It's really good at getting ahead of the cards that then are going to go up. So let's find a new one here. Let's find one from Commander Legends, for example. We'll pick on Horizon Stone from Commander Legends. You can come down here and you can see the high synergy cards and be like, whoa, Villainous Wealth, but that was just recently reprinted. Okay, well, maybe Overabundance. Oh, Overabundance did go up in value, 57% synergy. So when this card was printed, everyone that decided to slot this in the Commander deck probably went and picked up an Overabundance as well. So a good way to. Here's a recent one. Here's an even more recent one with Draugr Necromancer. So Draugr Necromancer, you can go down here and see the high synergy. Wow, look at that. This Rhyme Tender. So untap another target snow permanent, works with snow permanent. That's actually pretty interesting with Modern Horizons to see if Rhyme Tender is going to start going up in value, just as even being a common with that snow creature. So anyway, just some food for thought. All right, next up, before this video becomes 2 hours long, let's go to Open the Armory. This is another one that's at its super low price. It's only been reprinted in Shadows of Innistrad. The data for Shadow of Innistrad was great. It was another one of those cards that just had this really great trajectory, and then it did have that reprint. Well, this is going to flatline out, and it's going to start assuming this trajectory again. I like Open the Armory because it gets better and better with every aura and equipment. It actually does see play in, like, I believe it is in the nope, I guess it's not powerful enough for like Modern to tutor up because they can just use Stoneforge. But other than that, with Commander, though, it's going to go in every aura and equipment deck printed in white for Commander. It's just going to be a shoe-in. Again, back to the risk assessment. Will it be in those precons, though? So, but how many other decks are going to be? We saw a ton out of Commander Legends that worked with auras and enchantments. How many standard cards, how many standard sets print a non-precon card that works with auras and equipment? I can think of like a dozen in standard right now that have some sort of synergy with auras and equipment that can actually make the Open the Armory work for that deck. Same thing though. I think this is one that you want to really lowball in on, not paying much over even 10 cents, I would say, for Open the Armory. You want to look through your bulk bins. Most local game stores do have bulk after they do drafts and things like that. It just goes in the bulk. These are the ones you want to sift out. All right, then we get on the juicy stuff. I know I've called a Stair Command before. I got burned on this one pretty badly off of Double Masters after the double reprinting from Double Masters and Commander Legends. However, this one I think is going to start going up, even with the Double Masters and Commander Legends, and possibly it's even in like a Strixhaven precon. I think Austere Command is just, it's a very highly played card in Commander. 12% of all decks use it. It does basically everything you need to do. It's the best panic button for Commander. You can kill artifacts and enchantments. You can be kind of a one-sided board wipe. If you have good enchantments out, you don't destroy enchantments. If you have good artifacts out, you don't destroy artifacts. So you can tailor this to your needs. So I really like Austere Command. Picked it for Commander Double Masters. I didn't anticipate a double reprinting. Should have, because that was 2020 in a nutshell, was a lack of communication by Wizards where they threw every reprint in every set possible. However, I think this is a good one going forward. I think it's going to be targeted less now that the price has collapsed on this card. So it's going to have some time, some breathing room to go up in value. And last but definitely not least, the one that I've been targeting the most is just all the diamonds in general. These are surprisingly cards that got up to a pretty decent price tag. If we go over the Commander 2014 for Sky Diamond, for example, it got all the way up to like $3. This was in buy lists everywhere. You could find Card Kingdom picking it up. It gets reprinted not that often, actually, with these diamonds. And the ones that I really like, really target is the decks that do have a harder time generating mana. And that's why the Grixis ones are the ones that I think are the best. The Moss Diamond is the worst because it's very easy for green to add mana in other traditional ways through creatures, enchantments, and whatnot. Blue, black, red typically have a harder time generating mana than white and green do. And I mean, white's not too terrible, but oftentimes white it does have more options available through artifacts and other ways to generate mana. But the Sky Diamond, the Charcoal Diamond, the Fire Diamond, I think those are all great pickups. They all see a lot of play. 5% of all black decks use a Charcoal Diamond. 2 is the name of the game for mana rocks, even if they do come into play tapped. There are lots of decks. It's a budget version of a mana rock, so this actually does tend to sell for people that are looking for ways to save money on commander decks. It's going to go in every one of those decks because they are cheap, and eventually that will start to stretch the supply. These were all $2, $3, $4 at one point in time, and even though they did get a reprint as a common in Commander Legends, I think they'll age well. For any sort of historical data, just look at like Battle Bond, look at any of the master sets for commons and uncommons, and they typically do recover as far as the buy listing is concerned. So again, nothing too juicy for this new, the return to empty finance for the rogue market. But I think these are great tips or just things you can add to your arsenal for your managing your collection. Hope you enjoyed this video. I'll try not to be so long-winded in the next videos. This has been Kevin with the Rogue Market. Thanks for watching.